welcome to Corinne's Picks. I'm your host, Corinne Basabe. We are so fortunate to have a wonderful environmental artist today, Daniel Lanzilotta.
Yes.
I am so amazed by your work. I'm so glad you were willing to come on my show today.
Oh, absolutely. Thank you.
This is probably one of the most intriguing episodes that I think I've ever had because, I met you in Albany and I admired your pendant, like one of the ones that you're wearing now.
That's wearing that one.
And I was stunned when you told me, like, basically what these works were based on. So I'm not going to give it away. So I'm going to let you explain basically about your art and your journey to making this incredible work.
Yes. So, for instance, this one is a Febreze air freshener cap with Trader Joe's hand cream in the gold, and the blue or the turquoise is just plastic debris that comes my way.
But it looks like fine jewelry that you would find.
Because I pay very close attention to the detail and the techniques that I've developed over many years of how to work with the plastics and how to fuse them and how to manipulate them into the textures that I get. None of this comes out of the street or the ocean this way. This piece here, the orange part is Tropicana orange juice caps. And I just found out, someone just told me that they're going to discontinue that particular design soon, so I'm going to be going out soon to collect as many as I can.
As you can.
Because it's a very interesting plastic. The design is very interesting. They have a copyright or a patent on that design of how this looks like Gothic arches on the sides of a Tropicana orange juice cap. And that design is very specific to grab the finger so it's easy to open.
I'm going to show the first video because, you're showing these pendants, but they're so tiny. I want the audience to see some images of your art well. So let's show a video of your tower. What is that one called again?
That's
Crack Tower?
Crack Tower,
So I think that's the first video, and then we'll show you the suit and hat.
Yes, okay, yes.
So tell us a little bit about this one.
Well, that one is a collection of crack cocaine vials, which I collected over 5 years just before COVID set in. And I grew up in the Bronx. I'm very familiar with this issue of crack cocaine and syringes in our communities. And I was living at the Savoy up on Malcolm X Boulevard in like 140th Street, between 140th and like 145th. And I came out of the building one day and I saw a crack vial. I knew what it was, but I didn't really pay attention to it. And then I started looking at it differently. I realized that that little vial was a single stream use of plastics in the environment, like a water bottle. But it was far more worse than a water bottle. That little vial is deadly on so many levels. And so I started seeing them, and then I would see a lot of them, and I started thinking about them differently. So I intentionally went out to look for crack vials. And when I started to do that, I started finding a lot. You don't find one crack vial alone. You usually find them in multitudes. And I started seeing it and thinking about these deadly vials, particularly in Black and brown communities. And it started to really wear me out. And so I went into Marcus Garvey Park and I started to see what I was seeing. It wasn't pretty. So over 5 years, I collected about 5,000 of them. And my plan was to make that sculpture that you saw in the video to address this issue and to bring awareness to what was happening, because it's so prevalent, and the things I've seen in the years that I've been collecting crack vials has been pretty impactful on me and the horror of it. And
so my impression of a crack vial is something that's translucent. Do some of the crack vials come in colors?
Oh, all of them come in colors for the most part. They're very candy-like. They're very attractive. It's very inexpensive to buy this drug on the street. I've had many, many conversations with crack users, and they're very curious about me, walking around Marcus Garvey Park, 125th Street at Metro North. There's a shooting gallery there, a legal place to go and do whatever. and I would find the vials right there inside the 125th Street Metro North Station. Is a substation, and doesn't mean anything because right out in the side, I mean, everyone's doing whatever they're doing. I've had people come up to me and go, "I saw you at Marcus Garvey Park. What are you doing?" And I've had some great conversations.
They think that
And
you're
I've seen some really.
mischief.
What's that?
They think you're up to mischief in Marcus Garvey Park.
And no, they got to know me, and then some of the park rangers were curious about what I was doing. And I was on the lawn that you're not supposed to be on because there's a lot of crack vials on the lawn. And I would be collecting them, and they were like, "What are you doing?" And I said, "I'm an artist." And I would give them my business card, and they would go, "Oh, okay." And that gave me permission to kind of just keep collecting. But it's very painful to see what's going on out there. And especially when I was having conversations or saw what I've seen with women who are crack users. It's not pretty, and it's very horrific to watch and see and try to understand and wrap your head around it. And if you follow the money, you go to Kensington, Philadelphia, and look at some of the video documentaries about that, which is pretty bad.
I've seen it.
Or if you listen to Dr. Gabor Mate, a former MD whose expertise in trauma and addiction, and where he says in the western part of Canada, indigenous communities, it's the worst in North America, the addiction rate. And it's really quite stunning that nothing is really being done about it.
You know, it's interesting because I always try to find out what the intersection is between art and politics. And in some ways, you creating a piece of art about crack is very, very political, because without even seeing that piece, the crack tower, I wouldn't have known. Like it led to a conversation about the indigenous people being hooked on crack in Canada.
Well, it's throughout North America. It's
Right.
really, it also ties into the opioid situation we've had here, and the fact that the opioids were being prescribed excessively in the communities in America where addiction is rampant, basically all levels of society. In one conversation I had with a woman in Marcus Garvey Park, I usually wear 2 or 3 brooches, these two, and she came up to me, she said, "What are you doing?" And I said why I was doing what I was doing, and we had this incredible conversation. And I asked her, "Why don't I find crack vials on the street below 96th Street?" And she says, "Oh, it's there, it's just delivered differently." And that really kind of knocked me out. It's delivered differently. It's not in your face as it is in certain communities, black and brown communities, where you see it. It's on the street. The evidence is everywhere. You see brothers and sisters killed over, zombies up in Marcus Garvey Park by the fire tower. At certain times of the day, it's not pretty up there. And I was up there, I go up there every now and then still to collect. I was coming down those crazy steps in there, and these guys go out every day to collect syringes. They have buckets of syringes.
But I think Third Avenue in the Bronx has the same problem.
Yeah, I've been through there too. And even around Metro North Station at Fordham Road, along the side tracks, and there's also substation there, a police station, but yet there it is. It's just very, there's sort of like this enabling atmosphere around it. And when I was growing up in the Bronx, if you were using drugs, you were ashamed and you were hiding somewhere. Now it's in your face. It's no one's hiding anything. And that's very disturbing and painful to see. But the fact of the matter it is by design. It's not, a random thing. This is a financial gain for a lot of folks.
Yeah.
And I've been threatened. I've been told to stop what I was doing, and I was like, yeah, okay. And I've continued on.
So very interesting, and definitely, you creating this art is what led us to even be sitting at this table. I want to show some more pieces and talk a little bit more about how you began this journey. So let's see a couple more slides, and then talk about what inspired you. No, we saw this one. No, we didn't see this one.
Yeah, this is one of my favorites.
Okay.
It's really quite lovely. So the hat is a blue bucket, a paint bucket that was at a construction site in Biarritz, France, in the southwest of France, on the border of France and Spain. And I fell in love with the blue. It's just a bucket, paint bucket. And there are many small, beautiful details in the filigree of the plastics. And the hat structure itself is a reproduction of an old-fashioned cane chair that was made from natural fibers at one time, but that chair happened to be made of plastic. So all my work revolves around harvesting plastic out of the environment, and I literally never, ever, ever spend 10 cents on art supplies because it's constantly being supplied by post-human consumption, which is litter, waste, garbage, trash. And just this past week, I'm a graduate of the New York City Department of Sanitation's Sanitation Foundation Trash Academy.
Wow.
So I just did the 2-month program, and we go on tour. We went to Balcones Recycling Center in Brooklyn, and it's really shocking to see the garbage come in, the trucks. It's 24 hours, 7 days a week, and the mountains and mountains of post-human consumption. So we, as a society, are very wasteful. It's a very wasteful culture. And I harvest this plastic, as you see here, to make art and let beauty speak to the issues at hand.
Absolutely.
That one's called Plastic Primavera. That was in a show in Harlem a few years back. And that one is also, there's a lot of technique there, a lot of skill that's involved in making the piece. There are lighters, disposable lighters, and I could see there's 3 different types of plastic straws. There's the donut straw, there's the green coffee straw from the coffee place, and then there's another straw there. So that they're fused and melted together in a very specific way. And you get this kind of beautiful, rich, deep, concentrated textures and colors.
What kind of tools, I look at this pendant here, and they look like tiny, tiny beads, kind of like the beads you would find in African beadwork, or Native American. What kind of tools are you using?
Very small tools. The tools that I use are readily available, but I keep the techniques as a proprietary way of doing things. Like 2 days ago, what's today? Tuesday. Yeah, yesterday. I was in Brooklyn. I sat in a cafe. I found 3 gigantic plastic sled things kids use. And when I was growing up in the Bronx, we had sleds with metal rails and wood and rope. That sled is probably disintegrated somewhere in some, landfill somewhere. These toys will last thousands of years. So I saw 3 of them. They were cracked. They couldn't be more than a couple of years old, and yet they were in the trash. So I wasn't going to take all 3 of them. That would be cumbersome. But so I took one, and I cut it down, and I sat in a cafe somewhere in Park Slope, or by Prospect Park, actually. And I just sat there, and I was making pieces. And people, they come by, and they're like, well, they don't know what to make of me. And I was making beads. So to date, I must have made maybe 50 or 60,000 beads. It's time-consuming, and it's therapeutic for me to sit quiet. And if someone wants to have a conversation, I'm always open to that. I've made many friends, and I've had many incredible experiences meeting you, for instance, because of it. I was at Trinity Church down in Lower Manhattan on Sunday, and I was wearing this piece, and this woman was like, "Oh my God, that's so beautiful. Where'd you get it?" I said, "I make them." And she goes, "Oh, you should be doing the Javits Jewelry Show." And I thought, well, that's a nice idea, but that's not going to happen. And it was very intriguing. This piece is about 15 years old, that it still gets such, And I used to wear like 5 or 6 of these things. I kind of look ridiculous in certain photos. And I had a girlfriend to me, and years ago, she said, you got to calm down. You got to just wear one. Just wear one. And I was like, no, I got to have 5. But I did. I wound up wearing just one at a time now.
Yeah, okay, so we're going to go to a public service announcement, and then we'll come back and talk a little bit more about your journey.
Yeah, okay, good.
Welcome back to Corinne's Picks. I'm your host, Corinne Basabe. We are talking to this amazing environmental artist, Daniel Lanzilotta.
Yes, thank you.
We've talked about, you recycling and making these very fine pieces of art, of jewelry. Tell me a little bit more about your journey. Like, how did you get to that point where you started creating these pieces?
It starts in the Bronx. I always made stuff as a kid. And then years later, I wound up moving to the southwest of France, just a few blocks from the Atlantic Ocean in Biarritz, France. And my son, we were living in Manhattan. We wound up going back to France, where my son's mother is from. And she says, let's go to Biarritz, France and live. And I was like, I wasn't too sure about it. So I said, okay, let's go. And the ocean's right there. And so I would go with my son, who was 3 years old at the time, and I had my Swiss Army knife. And I would sit, and he would play with his plastic beach toys, and I would sit there and watch. And then all of a sudden, there's all this stuff, trash around me. So I sat, and I started playing with the trash very innocently with my Swiss Army knife, and I would make stuff, and I would like find this thing here and this thing there, and they fit. Right? I didn't understand why they fit. And so it became very intriguing to me to make these things. And so I just started getting more and more into it. And then I would go back to the beach without my son, and I would take walks. And I would go literally from just below Bordeaux all the way down to St. Sebastian, Spain by car. And I would go to all these beaches, and I kept finding the same trash over and over, and that became another level of like, why do I keep finding all these crazy same things? And then I started questioning it, and the pieces got more and more detail, and I got more, and then I started bringing plastic home, and I started working at home with the pieces, and it was very organic, and it just became a gigantic part of my life for all these years. This is like I'm going into my 29th year of doing this. And in that journey, I've had some incredible experiences. I've had people chase me. I've been invited to speak. I've got an all expense paid 1 week in Italy to give a talk and bring my art there. And I still maintain a great friendship with the guy who invited me, who has just been a great supporter of mine. And so that journey of working with this stuff and realizing the impact it had around the environment. So it became twofold. It became the art and the environmental issues that are behind the making of the art. So that's a whole nother subject matter. And that has become very important to me as well. I became a member of the Al Gore Climate Reality Project last year. 2024, I was one of the winners of the Human Impact Institute Creative Climate Awards for my mask. And so it's just been taken on a life of its own. So the artwork has to stand on its own, and then the environmental issues are what they are as we know them today. And what's happening now with this new administration and what's going to happen with the things that President Biden put into place with the Reduction Act and the EPA, and how powerful that has been, the greatest appropriation of money for the environment during the Biden administration, and why that's going to go, or it's probably gone away already.
You know, what's amazing is that you don't even have to preach or say things. You basically are given an example of what you believe in. But let's look at some more. I want to go through some more images very quickly so that you can, and while they flash, please do tell us a little bit about them as they appear.
It goes this way. It's wrong orientation. This piece is a very feminine piece. It's a necklace. It's called the Eve. It's called the Eve Jean necklace, and that's based around the origins of humanity from South Africa.
Wow.
And thank you, that's it. And so this piece is a dedication to the Eve Jean and where we all come from.
We all came from an African gene.
And that piece is dedicated to this journey. And that piece is made with about 2,500 handmade beads.
Wow.
So every single one of those beads is handmade from post-human consumption.
Are you using wires?
No wires are used, only broom bristles.
You're kidding me.
So everything is held together with broom bristles.
Okay.
It's a very rare moment that any other object comes into the work, unless it's really, there's no other solution to the issue. Because when I'm making the work, it creates problems, and those problems become the challenge, and the challenge becomes, how do I solve the problem? So it's a fun way of interacting with the piece, and I've gotten to learn the personalities of plastics. Every single plastic has a different personality. Some plastics don't want to be with other plastics. This piece is a headdress that was made from a Christmas tree stand. So that used to be a Christmas tree stand, and that's a real hoot to wear.
Wow.
And when it was under construction, I would sit in different places and I would work on it, and people would want to take photographs with me, and they want to wear it. And so that has a long, long history, that piece. So that Christmas tree stand actually made 2 hats. That's how big the Christmas tree stands are.
Very interesting. I love this piece right here. Tell us a little bit about this one.
That's called T-Frequency. That piece was made quite a while ago. That was made in France. That's all French Atlantic Ocean beach debris, made with umbrella parts. And that was a dedication piece to a friend of mine who actually caused me to go on the environmental journey. She was 11 years old when she was killed in a trucking accident. She was my girlfriend's daughter. She was an environmentalist at the time. She was the state of Connecticut's environmental winner when she was 10 years old. And so it was a very impactful loss for me at the time. And I decided that I would create artwork in her honor when she left. And I have continued to make these pieces of work with her in mind as an environmentalist. And she is truly the one who put me in the direction of becoming an environmentalist.
That's a powerful story.
And that piece too, that was just before that, That piece was called Pointing to Heaven. This piece was Pointing to Heaven. This was in the show that I did in France in 2015. And that is also a part of the show that was dedicated to her.
I love your sense of color.
It's it's the interesting thing about it is, like, when I'm wearing pieces, people say, how do you paint? I don't. I use the plastic as it's produced at the manufacturing point. So in the beginning of plastic production, there are things called plastic nurdles. They're just little dots. This piece has little nurdles in it. You won't be able to see them, but they're little nurdles. And stuffed animal toys that kids have are now stuffed with nurdles. So if they break open, the nurdles will fall out. The nurdles are a very large, very big problem in the environment. And so I take these plastics and I use them. But the colors are set at the time of manufacture. And for instance, they have patents on them. Like this blue probably has a patent on it for Febreze. Home Depot orange, Tropicana orange, they own these colors. You can't take these colors without infringing upon their copyright, which I find very interesting and crazy. Like, somebody owns a color. That doesn't make any sense to me, but they do.
But people own seeds. I mean,
yeah, right. Like, yeah, we can go down the deep end on that one too. Yes.
So we have about 1 minute left. What would you say? Going forward, what is your next adventure with trash?
The trash, as now I have a fresh new perspective on it, being now a graduate of the New York City Sanitation Department, Sanitation Foundation Academy. That has been very eye-opening. It doesn't seem to be slowing down. The fossil fuel industry seems to be very gung-ho about producing virgin plastics. I would really like to see my crack tower piece in a gallery in somewhere in New York City, maybe Harlem or the Bronx. That would be a big deal for me to have that in a gallery in New York City.
Thank you so much for being on the show. We'll have to do a part 2 sometime.
Oh yes, I would love to.
Didn't get through enough of your images.
I have plenty of artwork.
And where can people? Can you tell us the name of your website? Like, how do
Well,
can
it's
find
Daniel Lanzilotta .net, I believe it is. Yeah, .net. Or you can go to Instagram, Daniel Lanzilotta Instagram, or Facebook. Same, my name. Just Google it, or just Google it, and I don't know how many pages on Google.
Okay, so I guess to be continued. Thank you very much for being on the show. Thank you for being.
Thank you for having me as a guest.